So you'll want to go to your web browser. I am using Chrome, but you can use whatever you're used to using, and go to zoom.us. Once you go to zoom.us, you'll want to sign in. Sign in for your Zoom Pro account. Important that you have a Zoom Pro account so that you can use the different settings that we're going to be talking about. Once you're logged in, you'll want to go to your settings, and we will talk through some of the different settings that we think are important for you to have enabled. The first one is under the security heading, which you'll see here, is the waiting room. And it's important to have a level of security in your meetings or your trainings on Zoom. And so we found that the waiting room is very beneficial. So when you enable the waiting room, everyone that joins the call will need to be admitted into the meeting or the training. And so you can edit the options, but really we haven't found that that's actually going to be beneficial. So we've just put everyone in the waiting room, and then you can customize the waiting room. We've done this for some specific training events like Welcome to the Disciple Making Journey or Welcome to the CMF workshop. So you can do that by the standard one is please wait, the meeting host will let you in soon, which is fine to keep, but you can go to the little pencil and you can type in your specific message. Once you type it, you'll want to make sure to hit the check mark to save it. Otherwise, it does not save. You can type something in and choose the X, and it will revert back to whatever it was before. If you want to go back to just the general message, you'll delete what's there. Make sure to save it, and it will go back to its original standardized wording. You can add a logo and edit that, but we have not done that. And you can also edit what is said in smaller text. Again, we haven't edited that, but that's something that you can choose to edit if you prefer. Something to note is that you will, whatever you customize your waiting room to, it will be customized across your different links or IDs for your Zoom account. So you just have to be aware of that. The next few ones we don't require. There is an option that you can require a passcode or a password, but we have found that that is not necessarily the most beneficial to us because people can lose passwords, and if you want to use a password, that is completely fine. I actually have it checked to embed passcode and invite link for one-click join. So that may be something you want to enable. Under schedule meeting, we actually have the host video and the participant video turned off, and this is a bit of a preference. We would like you to have your host video and participant video turned off, though, for the purposes of the online training for the Bootcamp to Learn Zoom. Although it's nice to have to see people and to hear people when you first join, when you have larger groups or training groups, people join at different times, unfortunately, and so it just becomes a bit of a distraction. And so it's just something that we've found it's better to give that into the hands of the participant or the host to be able to enable their video by turning it on themselves when they choose. For the audio type, we always have the telephone and computer audio enabled in case someone needs to join by phone. I have joined before host selected with with the waiting room, I don't know that that's really actually doing much, but it is something I leave on. And then enable personal meeting ID. This is something that if you have this enabled, you can kind of have a go-to meeting ID, and a lot of people in ECC that do have they have a personal meeting ID and they just continue to use the same one over and over. Now there are pros and cons to that. Some pros that it's easy to just send the same one and you don't have to remember as the person setting up the meetings which one you need to send out. The con is that someone could get on at the wrong time and try to join when you're in another meeting, or if someone that happens to get the ID that you don't want to have the ID, then they would have it and they may be able to join when you don't want them to. So if you're wondering how you can change your personal meeting ID, you can see that you can visit personal meeting room here and you can change it. So a lot of people use their own phone numbers for their personal meeting ID. Another setting that we have enabled is to mute the participants upon entry, and you just click it to turn, now it's turned off or not enabled. When it's blue, that means it's enabled. And so this is another thing where it sounds nice to be able to join into a meeting and to have the noise and the camaraderie. But again, sometimes that can be very distracting, particularly in larger groups. And so we have just muted participants upon entry and they have the ability to unmute themselves. Or you can unmute them as well as a host. I have the upcoming meeting reminder enabled, but I'm not really sure what that does. So that's something that you can choose to enable or not. In meeting basic, the chat function is something that you'll want to enable. So make sure it's blue. And that's something that we use very frequently. Go ahead and enable the private chat for our purposes for Bootcamp. But in general, that's something that you can choose, or if you feel like people are abusing that and it's distracting them, you can turn that off in your settings and not allow private chat, which means I believe that you would not also as the host or as the person leading be able to privately chat as well. I have the auto saving chats on, so that's for like the main chats that are sent, where we often send links to folders and information. I just go ahead and have that auto save so I don't have to remember to do that. Sound notification when someone joins or leaves, go ahead and enable that because that's something that's very nice. So visually you'll be able to see if someone's in the waiting room, but if you're doing something else, as you're able to get on, or if you're in a meeting and someone needs to join, it's nice to have that sound enabled, and we have it set to host and co-host only to be able to hear that sound because you don't want it to distract everyone. So go ahead and make sure that the sound notification when someone joins or leaves is enabled, and then host and co-host only are highlighted. I have feedback to Zoom. It's something that you can choose. Again, not sure of all the benefits of it. Now we'll move down to co-host. This is something that you'll want to enable so that you can have not just a host, but you can have at least one other co-host or several co-hosts, depending on the need. And polling, that's something that we'd like you to enable as well, so that we may not use it for this training, but in the future you can use the polling function. You can also disable that in the future if you aren't using it. Always show meeting control bar. This is something that is just for the person that's logged into the account. It does not affect the other users, but that's something if you don't like when the meeting control bar goes away with the mute, the start video, the participants, chat, and all of that. If you don't like that that goes away, then I would say enable that so that it's always on for you. Show Zoom windows during screen share. I have enabled that because when you are the person sharing the screen and you don't have this on, it tends to hide things. And so it's just better to leave that on. So go ahead and enable that. And then for screen sharing, we enable that. And currently we have it set to all participants can screen share. And only the host can start sharing when someone else is sharing. So you'll see that here, who can share all participants, who can start sharing when someone else is sharing, the host only. We've never set it to all participants for who can basically interrupt, because if people figured that out or could accidentally start screen sharing, and it may be in the future that you want to only have the host be able to screen share, and that's fine. But for this, for the purposes we have right now, go ahead and put all participants and only for you. Annotation, we have that turned on. We don't use it a whole lot, but that's something where you can like draw and write and interact with the screen, and we leave it on, but that's something that you can choose. So go ahead and turn it on. The whiteboard is something that we'd like you to enable. I always allow saving of whiteboard content, and actually it auto saves in the meeting. It will pop up with that saved content as well as the chat. We have the remote control function on. You can give control over to other people. Again, we don't really use this a whole lot, but it is something that I haven't really found that it's hurt us to have it on. So we just leave it on. Nonverbal feedback is in the participants section, like the raising of the hand, saying yes, no, go faster, go slower, those things kind of at the bottom are the nonverbal feedback. And so we want that enabled because we use the hand raising a lot. And so make sure that is enabled. And then meeting reactions is at the bottom of your Zoom window, and it's under reaction. That's like thumbs up and clapping. That's something that we would like you to enable. Go ahead and allow remove participants to rejoin, and then allow participants to rename themselves as well. This is important for when, especially when you have a list of people that are supposed to be in a breakout room or supposed to be in the meeting, and you're trying to compare notes. This is good that someone doesn't have their name as Precious when their name is Sarah, because unless they go by Precious and that's what they want to be referred to, of course, we don't want to name them something that they're, have a list of their name of something that they don't want to be referred to as. But sometimes people log in under their spouse's account or their child's account, and so having people know how to rename themselves and have the ability to rename themselves, it's important for people to be able to rename themselves with an appropriate name. That's something good to teach people. In meeting advanced settings, report participants to Zoom. I haven't had to do that, but I do have that ability to do that. For breakout rooms, you want to go ahead and make sure that that is blue, and you actually don't need to have that. So you want to make sure the breakout rooms are enabled on your Zoom settings, otherwise you will not have that option, and that's going to be important. Keep scrolling down. Virtual background, I would say go ahead and enable it. If you choose to disable it in the future, that's fine, but that's something that we have enabled. Video filters, have that enabled as well. Don't really use it a whole lot, but something that we do have enabled. Keep scrolling. Select data center regions for meeting webinars hosted by your account. I go ahead and select that. Not exactly sure of its purpose, but I figure we're working with people around the world, so it's good probably to have that on. Another thing is request permission to unmute. I think that's something good. So if someone doesn't know how to unmute or isn't unmuting or whatever, you can send them a request as a host or co-host and kind of help them to unmute themselves. Email notifications, when you record, you can have it, if it goes to the cloud, you can have it send you an email reminder, which I do when attendees join before meeting host, when a meeting is canceled, when an alternative host is set or removed from a meeting, when someone scheduled a meeting for a host. These are all things that don't necessarily have a lot of practical application for what we've been using it for, but is something that I just leave enabled. And then when the cloud recording is going to be permanently deleted from the trash, I find this helpful because it only keeps it there for so long. It only has so much space in the cloud. And so I like to receive those notifications. That's a choice you can make. Blur snapshot, don't really know, but I have it on. The invitation email set to English. And that gets us to the end of the Zoom settings.